Have you ever stopped and thought about why one person at 72 is out in the garden every morning, blood pressure perfect, no medications, no complaints, while another person at 64 is sitting across from me with a folder full of test results, genuinely confused about what went wrong? Both of them lived their lives, both of them tried, but one was doing the right things, the other was doing the things everyone said were right. Those are two completely different categories, and right now I'm going to take them apart one by one. Subscribe to Dr. Waterling and hit that like button if you want the actual truth about your health, not polished promises. What I'm going to tell you today, nobody at your next doctor's appointment is going to bring up. The system is not designed to help you fix the cause. It profits when you keep treating the consequences. Help this channel reach 1,000 subscribers, because someone has to say this out loud. 15 years of practice, thousands of patients, and one conclusion I keep coming back to every single week. The people who live long and live well aren't doing anything heroic. No superfoods, no extreme diets, no morning ice baths, no fistfuls of supplements. They do simple things. They do them correctly, and they do them every day. Not out of discipline, not out of willpower, but because those things became habits. Meanwhile, the people who get sick young are often doing something, just the wrong things. Or they've been carrying myths around for decades that have no basis in actual medicine. Today we're going through 5 major areas: genetics, food, movement, sleep and stress, and lab work, including how to actually use a doctor. No padding, no fear-mongering, only what works. Let's start with genetics, because this is far and away the most popular excuse I hear in my office. Doctor, my mother died at 60, my grandmother at 58. What am I supposed to do with genes like that? I hear some version of this almost every single day, and every single time I say the same thing. Your genes are not a sentence. Your genes are the hand you were dealt. What you do with that hand, that's a completely different conversation. There was a large-scale study conducted in Denmark on identical twins. Identical twins are people with 100% identical genetic material. Not similar, identical. Researchers followed them for decades. The finding was clear. Genetics accounts for roughly 20 to 25% of how long a person lives. 30% at the absolute ceiling. Everything else, lifestyle, habits, environment, relationships, what you eat, how you sleep, how you handle stress, that's the other 70 to 80%. The part you control right now, today. Think about it this way. Imagine you were handed an apartment. One person gets a unit in a brand new building. Solid walls, tight windows, everything tight. Another person gets a unit in an old building, cracks in the foundation, a leaking roof, different starting conditions. That's real. I won't pretend otherwise. But if the person in the new apartment never fixes anything, never opens a window, runs the pipes into the floor, in 10 years, it's a disaster. And if the person in the old apartment stays on top of it, patches what needs patching, takes care of things consistently, that apartment stands for 50 more years. That's genetics. I've watched this play out hundreds of times. A man comes in, 55 years old. His father died of a heart attack at 52. He's in a panic. Doctor, do I have 3 years left? No. He has however long he decides to give himself. We started working together. First, we cut his cigarettes. Not gone overnight, that wasn't the plan. 5 a day, then 3, then 0. We added walking. Not a gym, not a trainer, just to the store and back. We swapped out the nightly deli meat for fish twice a week. 1 year later, his cholesterol had dropped by 1.5 points. His blood pressure was stable, and he told me, for the first time in 10 years, that he was actually sleeping. That's not genetics. That's what happens when you stop letting genetics be an excuse. Now, I'm not here to pretend genes don't matter. They do. There are real hereditary predispositions. Type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, certain cancers. Type 2 diabetes is a condition where the body loses its ability to properly regulate blood sugar. If your family has that history, the answer is not panic. The answer is pay closer attention, start earlier, get checked more often. I call this the traffic light rule. If your family has serious disease history, you're on yellow. Not red, not stop, attention. Those are not the same thing. Here's what that actually means in practice. If diabetes ran in your family, check your fasting blood sugar and glycated hemoglobin. That's a test showing your average blood sugar over the past 3 months. Every year after 40. Not after you've already been hit. before. If heart attacks or strokes are in your family history, watch your blood pressure, your cholesterol, and your triglycerides. If there were cancers, talk to your doctor about a personalized screening schedule. Not the generic one-size-fits-all checklist, but one built around your specific family history. And here's something most people never consider. A lot of what people call hereditary disease is actually hereditary behavior, not genes, habits. If 3 generations of a family fried everything in lard, ate salt by the spoonful, and thought physical activity was for people with nothing better to do, of course everybody has high blood pressure. That's not in your DNA. That's a lifestyle being handed down alongside the recipes. I remember a woman, 61 years old, type 2 diabetes. She told me, "Everyone in my family has this. My mother had it, my aunt had it, my brother has it." I asked her what she usually had for lunch. Pasta, white bread, canned fruit compote with 5 spoons of sugar. My mother always made it that way. Her mother made it that way and had diabetes. She makes it the same way and has diabetes. That's not a genetic curse. That's a sugar-loaded compote and bread on top of pasta 3 times a day. We didn't start with medication. We started with the plate. Out went the white bread, replaced with whole grain, and not every day. Pasta only from durum wheat, portions cut in half. The compote made without sugar, with cinnamon and a wedge of lemon. More vegetables, more protein, a small handful of nuts as a snack. 4 months later, her glycated hemoglobin dropped from 8.2 down to 6.7. 4 months. No starvation, no suffering, just a different plate. Here is a practical step you can take right now. Take a piece of paper and write down what your closest relatives had. Mother, father, grandparents, in plain language, not medical terms. Dad had a heart attack at 63. Grandmother had high blood sugar. That is your genetic map. Bring it to your doctor and ask for a personalized screening plan. Not the standard one where everyone over 50 gets the same checklist, but one built specifically for your history. And when people tell me, "I don't care how long I live, I just don't want to suffer," I tell them, let's make it so you live longer and don't suffer. That's not a fantasy. That's exactly how people live in what researchers call blue zones, regions of the world with the highest concentrations of people who reach extreme old age. Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Ikaria in Greece. People there live into their 90s and hundreds, and they're not in beds. They're walking, cooking, working in gardens. What connects them? Not a single miracle gene. A set of simple, consistent habits. Those habits are exactly what we're going to cover. Let's move to food. Everyone's favorite topic and simultaneously the most tangled, contradictory mess in modern health information. I sometimes think if my patients stopped reading the internet and just ate sensibly, I'd have 40% fewer appointments. One website screams, "Give up all meat." Another, "Eat only meat, carbs are poison." A third, "Drink lemon water with baking soda every morning and cancer won't touch you." And so a 60-year-old sits across from me, confused, frightened, and genuinely unsure what to put on his plate. Here's the first thing you need to understand. There is no single magic food that will extend your life. Not garlic, not turmeric, not buckwheat, not goji berries. That's marketing. Expensive, well-packaged marketing. What extends your life isn't one food. It's your eating pattern. What you eat consistently, every day, month after month, year after year. One afternoon of grilled meat at a backyard barbecue changes nothing. 20 years of processed deli meat for breakfast every single morning, that's a different story entirely. First, protein. This is the one everyone overlooks. After 50, the body starts losing muscle mass. This process is called sarcopenia. You don't need to memorize the word, just understand what it means. Every year, your muscles get a little smaller, a little weaker, unless you do something about it. By the time some people reach 70, they've lost up to 30% of the muscle mass they had at their peak. And muscle isn't just aesthetic. Muscle is your structural support. It holds your spine upright, protects your joints, gets you off a chair, keeps you balanced, keeps you from going down on an icy sidewalk in February. Muscle is built from protein. And the majority of people over 50 eat catastrophically little of it. Oatmeal for breakfast, soup for lunch, potatoes and a salad for dinner. Where is the protein? It's not there. Simple rule. Every single meal should have a protein source. Breakfast, an egg or cottage cheese. Lunch, a piece of fish or chicken. Dinner, legumes, a bit of hard cheese, or a serving of lean meat. A portion roughly the size of your palm, 3 times a day. This is not a bodybuilder's regimen. This is the baseline for a healthy person over 50. Now let me address the myth directly. After 60, eating meat is harmful. That is completely false. Where did it come from? Someone read a study about processed meat, stripped it of context, and it spread. Processed meat means sausage, hot dogs, bacon, smoked meats. Yes, those you should limit, genuinely. But regular meat, beef, chicken, turkey, rabbit, is an excellent source of protein, iron, and vitamin B12. Especially when you bake it, boil it, or braise it rather than frying it black in a pan. I had a patient, 67 years old, a retired engineer. He came in pale, exhausted, struggling to climb a single flight of stairs. 3 years earlier, he told me, he had read that meat was toxic, eliminated it completely, switched to grains, vegetables, fruit. I ran his labs, hemoglobin at 103, that's below normal, indicating mild anemia, ferritin scraping the bottom of the range, vitamin B12 below normal. His body was starving, not from lack of food, but from lack of the right food. We brought back meat gradually, alternating with fish. 3 months later, he was a different person. Color in his face, energy, mood, everything shifted. Second, vegetables. When I say eat your vegetables, most people picture punishment. Raw carrots, plain cucumbers, a tasteless salad with no dressing. No, vegetables should be enjoyable. Braised cabbage with carrots and onion, roasted zucchini with garlic, beets with a drizzle of unrefined oil, a thick vegetable soup with fresh herbs. That's food, not a sentence. Why do vegetables matter so much? 2 reasons: fiber and antioxidants. Fiber, think of it as a brush for your intestinal tract. It sweeps up waste, excess cholesterol, toxins, and moves them out. Without adequate fiber, the gut functions like a clogged pipe. Things back up, ferment, cause problems. And when digestion is compromised, everything suffers. Skin, immune function, mood, sleep quality. Antioxidants are compounds that protect your cells from oxidative damage, the kind of slow cellular wear that accumulates over decades. The richest sources are your brightly colored vegetables: beets, carrots, tomatoes, bell peppers, spinach, fresh parsley, and dill. Practical step: add 1 portion of vegetables, the size of your fist, to lunch and dinner, not as a side to the side dish, instead of a second serving of potatoes or another slice of bread. Start 3 times a week. After a month, expand from there. Third, what to reduce. I'm not going to tell you to give up everything you enjoy. I'm a realist, not a monk. Drastic overnight changes create stress, and chronic stress is its own enemy of health. But 3 categories are worth beginning to reduce, gradually, right now. Sugar. Not the sugar in an apple. The sugar in your tea, in jam, in cookies, in sweetened yogurts, in carton juice. Do you know how much sugar is in a glass of packaged apple juice? 5 to 6 teaspoons. Exactly as much as in a glass of cola. That's not a scare tactic, that's what's on the label. After 50, excess sugar is a slow-burning fuse. It raises insulin, the hormone that regulates blood glucose, and chronically elevated insulin drives systemic inflammation. Inflammation accelerates aging in your blood vessels, your joints, your brain. This isn't fear-mongering, this is basic biochemistry. What to do? Start with your tea. If you're putting in 3 spoons, go to 2. Next week, 1.5. A month later, 1. 2 months from now, try it without. Your palate will adjust. Taste receptors are not permanent. They recalibrate over weeks. One of my patients, a retired teacher, 63 years old, had been putting 3 spoons of sugar in her tea for 40 years. She told me she couldn't possibly drink it any other way. 3 months later, she tasted her old amount and set the cup down. It's disgustingly sweet. I can't believe I used to drink that. Habits change. Not in a day, in a month. Salt. not elimination, reduction. The guideline is 5 to 6 grams per day. That's roughly 1 teaspoon total. The average person consumes 10 to 12 grams, and they don't even know it because the salt is hidden in bread, in cheese, in canned foods, in deli meat, in pickled vegetables. Excess salt retains water, raises blood pressure, and puts load on the kidneys and heart. After 50, when your arterial walls are no longer as elastic as they were at 25, this matters more. Simple solution: take the salt shaker off the table. Put it in a cabinet. If you want flavor, use lemon juice, garlic, fresh dill, basil, black pepper. Processed foods: sausage, hot dogs, smoked meats, store-bought patties, frozen pizza, instant noodles. These are the products actually worth walking away from. They're dense with salt, sugar, trans fats, fats chemically modified in ways that damage your blood vessel walls, and preservatives while delivering essentially zero nutritional value. Year after year, study after study, across hundreds of thousands of people in multiple countries, those who eat the most processed food get sick sooner and die earlier. The replacement is simpler than it sounds. Instead of deli meat, a piece of baked chicken breast. 25 minutes in the oven covers 3 days of lunches. Instead of a store-bought mayonnaise salad, vegetables with olive oil. People tell me cooking at home is complicated. You know what's actually complicated? Treating 30 years of consequences from processed food breakfasts. That's complicated. One more thing on food: water. I won't give you the 2 liters a day oversimplification because actual hydration needs vary by body weight, weather, activity level, and what you eat. But here's what I will say. Most people over 50 are chronically underhydrated. Not because they refuse to drink, because the sensation of thirst diminishes with age. The brain simply stops sending the signal as reliably as it used to. The consequences pile up quietly. Thicker blood, which increases clotting risk, reduced kidney efficiency, dry skin, constipation, headaches, persistent fatigue. Simple fix. Put a bottle of water on your kitchen counter. Every time you walk past it, take 3 or 4 sips. Don't force yourself to drain a full glass. Just a few sips consistently throughout the day. Eating after 50 isn't a diet. It isn't restriction. It's a choice. A choice you make every time you open the refrigerator. Each choice is a small step either toward your health or away from it. Start with 1. Add protein to your breakfast. Cut 1 spoon of sugar from your tea. Swap the processed meat for something you cooked yourself. 1 step per week. In 6 months, you won't recognize your plate. In a year, you won't recognize your lab results. Now, movement. This is the topic surrounded by the most damaging extremes I encounter. On one end, people who believe that after 50, you need to conserve yourself. Sit down, lie down, don't strain anything. My doctor said no physical exertion. So they sit for years and then wonder why their legs won't carry them, why their back has locked up, why climbing to the 2nd floor leaves them breathless. On the other end, someone watches a video about an 80-year-old marathon runner and decides at 62, with damaged knees and 0 training base, to go run 6 miles tomorrow. Result? Injury, pain, discouragement, and the couch again. The single most important thing I can tell you about physical activity: the best exercise is the one you will actually do every day. Not the most intense, not the most trending, the one that fits your life and that you won't quit after a week. There's a real phenomenon that physicians track called sedentary disease. It sounds almost comical, but it isn't. When a person sits for more than 8 hours a day, and many retirees are doing exactly that, television to armchair to couch, a cascade of problems begins. Metabolism slows, muscles weaken without stimulation, blood circulation drops. Blood sugar rises because muscle tissue is the primary consumer of glucose, and muscles that aren't working aren't consuming anything. Think of a car that's been parked in a garage for years. Nobody hit it, nobody broke it, but the battery is dead, the oil has thickened, the seals have dried out. It just won't start. That's what happens to a body deprived of movement. It doesn't break from overuse, it breaks from disuse. What does the science say? Consistent data shows that regular walking, just walking, not running, not jumping, reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease by roughly 30 to 35%. That's a larger benefit than some medications deliver, and it requires no gym membership, no trainer, no special equipment. just legs and intention. How much? Ideally 30 to 60 minutes a day, but if you're currently doing nothing, start with 15. Seriously, 15 minutes. After breakfast, step outside, walk around the block and back. That's it. Week 2, 20 minutes. Week 3, 25. Your body will begin asking for more because it will start feeling the difference. I had a patient, a retired accountant, 66 years old, who came to me with back pain, poor sleep, and constant fatigue. Medications weren't touching it. Physical therapy gave her temporary relief at best. I asked how much she walked each day. To the store and back, maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes for an entire day. We started simply, 20 minutes of walking every morning. Not fast, not uphill, just walking. Through the courtyard, through the park, down the sidewalk. 2 months in, her back pain was half of what it had been. 4 months in, her sleep had normalized. 6 months later, she walked into my office and said, "Yesterday I walked 5 kilometers and I felt good. No medication change, no procedures. 20 minutes of walking every morning." But walking isn't the whole picture. There's another type of activity that becomes critically important after 50, and almost nobody talks about it in the right way. Resistance exercise, working your muscles against load. And before you picture a barbell, stop. I mean simple body weight movements you can do in your living room. We talked about sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle with age. The only physiological way to slow or reverse it is to regularly challenge the muscles. Not overload them, challenge them. Those are different things. What does that actually look like? Squats while holding onto a chair back, 10 repetitions, morning and evening. Wall push-ups if floor push-ups are too much. Calf raises while standing at a counter, 20 times. A wall plank, just holding your body straight with your arms against the wall, for 15 seconds, building up gradually. These movements take 10 minutes total, 10 minutes a day. But they send your muscles a clear signal. You are needed, stay. And they do. Along with the muscle comes strength, balance, healthy bone density, a faster resting metabolism, and protection against falls. On the subject of falls, this is serious. One of the leading causes of catastrophic injury in people over 65 is a fall. A fractured hip is not just painful. It means months in bed, loss of independence, depression, and often significant permanent functional decline. The primary prevention isn't a calcium supplement, it's strong leg muscles and solid balance, which is exactly what chair squats and calf raises build. And one more dimension of movement I want you to understand. It isn't only physical. When you move, your brain receives more blood, more oxygen, more of the nutrients it needs to function. The brain releases compounds that stabilize mood, not pharmaceutical analogs, the real thing. People who walk consistently develop lower rates of anxiety and depression. They retain sharper memory. They think more clearly. I've watched this enough times that I've stopped being surprised by it. Someone walks into my office flat, gray, complaining of mental fog. They start walking daily. A month later, there's something different in their eyes. Faster speech, a smile. "Doctor, I'm doing crossword puzzles faster than I did 20 years ago." That's not inspiration. That's blood flow and oxygen delivery. Practical plan for the first 2 weeks. Week 1. Every day, 15 minutes of walking after breakfast. A pace where you can hold a conversation but feel your breathing slightly pick up. Not faster, not slower. Week 2. Extend to 20 minutes and add twice daily. Morning and evening. 3 exercises. 10 chair squats, 10 calf raises, 10-second wall plank. That's your foundation. Everything else builds from there. When should you see a doctor before starting? If you have joint problems, especially knees or hips. If you have any history of heart disease. If you get short of breath with minimal effort. If you haven't had a checkup in years, see your doctor first. Get an EKG and blood pressure checked, and then begin. Safety before everything. Nothing I say here replaces a physician who actually knows you. Now, sleep and stress. This is the section most people mentally file under not that important. I hear it all the time. It's just some lost sleep. It's just some stress. I'm not made of glass. And then those same people sit in my office with blood pressure at 170 over 105 and ask where it came from. Not stressed? your body has a different opinion. Here's the internal mechanism. When you're under stress, your body releases a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is your fight or flight hormone. It evolved to help our ancestors survive a predator. The problem is that the human brain cannot distinguish a real physical threat from a screaming argument with a neighbor or a disturbing news broadcast. To the brain, it's all the same threat signal, and it runs the same program every time. Cortisol. Short term, this is useful. It mobilizes your system. But when cortisol stays elevated for months, for years, it begins to destroy things. Blood vessel walls, immune function, the stomach lining, memory formation, sleep architecture. Picture pressing the accelerator in your car and not letting go. The engine screams, the RPM needle is in the red. 1 minute, manageable. 10 minutes, the engine overheats. An hour, it burns out. Chronic stress is that accelerator held down for years, and you're standing there wondering why the engine is failing. What can you actually do about it? I'm not going to tell you to just relax. That is the most useless advice in medicine. You can't relax on command any more than you can fall asleep on command. The harder you try, the worse it gets. But there are specific things that work physiologically. First, breathing. I know how it sounds, but here is a clinical fact. When you execute a slow, deep exhale that is longer than your inhale, your parasympathetic nervous system activates. That's the branch of your nervous system responsible for rest and recovery. It physically, measurably reduces circulating cortisol, not as a metaphor, biochemically. The technique is simple. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts, hold for 2, exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 to 8 counts. 5 cycles, 3 minutes total. Do this morning and evening, and do it the moment you feel yourself beginning to escalate. A patient of mine, a former factory supervisor, 61 years old, came in with severe insomnia, 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. He was taking prescription sleep medication, which helped him fall asleep, but left him feeling drugged and foggy every morning. I taught him this breathing technique. He was openly skeptical. "Doctor, what is this breathing nonsense? I'm a serious person." 3 weeks later, he called. "I don't know how, but I'm falling asleep in 15 minutes. Before, it took 2 hours. The serious person and his breathing. Second, sleep schedule. I know, it sounds like something from kindergarten, but after 50, a consistent schedule isn't a preference, it's a physiological requirement. Your body runs like a precision clock. When you go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, within roughly 30 minutes, your brain synchronizes all its internal processes to that rhythm. Melatonin, the hormone that initiates sleep, is released on schedule. Cortisol drops appropriately in the evening. Digestion runs in rhythm. Everything is coordinated. When you sleep at 11 tonight, midnight tomorrow, 10 the night after, and 3 in the morning on weekends because something was on television, your brain loses the thread. It doesn't know when to sleep, when to be alert, when to run the repair processes that only happen during deep sleep, and everything begins to fail. Pick a bedtime, a specific one, like 10:30 or 11. Hold to it every day, including weekends. The first 2 weeks will feel difficult. Then your body locks in. Your sleep will deepen. Mornings will be easier. Third, screens before bed. Your phone at night is metabolic poison. Not because the content is harmful, but because the blue light wavelengths emitted by screens suppress melatonin production. Your brain detects that light and concludes it's still daytime. The sleep onset mechanism doesn't activate. Rule: no screens for the 60 minutes before bed. No phone, no tablet, no television. Replace it with a book, a conversation with someone you care about, the breathing practice, or a short walk. Many people use the television to unwind before sleep. The paradox: television doesn't quiet the brain, it overstimulates it. Especially news programs, especially anything involving elevated voices and conflict. Fourth, and this one surprises people, social connection. Human relationships are a biological health variable. The Harvard Study of Adult Development, the longest-running study of human well-being ever conducted, spanning more than 75 years of continuous follow-up, reached one central conclusion. Not about diet, not about exercise, not about supplements. The finding was that people with warm, close, consistent relationships lived longer and had significantly lower rates of serious illness. Chronic loneliness is harmful to the body at a level comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. That comparison comes directly from the research. I see this in practice every single week. A retiree comes in, spouse has died or left, children have moved across the country, alone in the apartment all day with the television running in the corner. And this person has everything: high blood pressure, elevated blood sugar, insomnia, heart palpitations, dizziness. Sometimes the labs are almost normal, but the person is suffering because they're alone. And the body communicates its distress the only way it knows, through symptoms. What to do? Don't wait to be called. Call first. Go to a neighbor's house for tea. Sign up for a class. Watercolor painting, Nordic walking, a choir. Go to the library. Walk someone else's dog if you don't have your own. This sounds small. It isn't small. This is years of life. I had a patient, 71 years old, widowed. His complaint was that everything hurt and nothing helped. His lab results were reasonably acceptable. I asked him, "Is there anyone you talk to?" He went quiet. Then quietly, "No, not for 2 years now." I referred him to a gentle exercise and social group at a local senior center. Retirees, light movement, then tea and conversation afterward. 3 months later, he was a different person. He started coming to appointments to tell me good news instead of bad news. Same medications, same diet. The only thing that changed was that he was no longer alone. Practical step. Right now, today. Call someone you haven't spoken to in a while. A friend, a sibling, a former colleague, a neighbor. No occasion needed. "Hey, it's been too long. How are you doing?" 5 minutes. That is preventive medicine more powerful than most things in a bottle. Here's something I want to ask you directly because it matters to how I answer questions on this channel. The way age affects everything we've talked about today, how your body processes stress, how quickly your sleep rhythm recovers from disruption, how much muscle mass you're working to preserve, how your cardiovascular risk profile sits, all of it shifts meaningfully between 50, 60, and 70. The risks are genuinely different at each stage, and the most useful steps I can recommend depend on where you are. How old are you? Write your age in the comments. I want to see who's watching. It will directly shape the topics I focus on next. Now let's talk about lab work and medical checkups. This topic produces two completely opposite reactions. Either, I run 100 tests every year and I still can't stop worrying, or I haven't seen a doctor in 15 years and I won't go until something falls off. Both extremes cause harm. Why get screened if you feel fine? Because the most serious conditions, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, certain cancers, osteoporosis, produce zero symptoms in their early stages. Zero. You can be walking around with a fasting blood sugar of 7 and feel completely normal. Blood pressure at 150 with no symptoms at all. Cholesterol through the ceiling, no complaints. And then a heart attack, a stroke, kidney failure, out of nowhere. Except it wasn't out of nowhere. It was building quietly for years, and it was catchable. Write these down. After 50, once a year, a complete blood count. This shows whether you have anemia, inflammation, or problems with blood cell production. Fasting blood glucose and glycated hemoglobin together. One shows your blood sugar right now, the other shows your average over the past 3 months. Together, they give you a real picture, not a snapshot. A full lipid panel, not just total cholesterol, but the complete breakdown. Total cholesterol, LDL, the fraction that deposits on artery walls, sometimes called the bad cholesterol, HDL, the fraction that removes cholesterol from the bloodstream, sometimes called the good cholesterol, and triglycerides, which are fats circulating in the blood. Total cholesterol can look acceptable, while the ratio between these components is dangerous. That's why the breakdown matters. Creatinine and urea, these assess kidney function. The kidneys work silently and do not complain until they've lost roughly 2/3 of their capacity. Catching a problem early changes everything. Liver enzymes ALT and AST. The liver is another silent organ, one that typically doesn't hurt until things are already serious. Vitamin D. An enormous proportion of people over 50 are deficient, particularly in northern latitudes where sunlight is limited for half the year. Vitamin D deficiency means weaker bones, compromised immune function, persistently low mood, and significantly elevated fracture risk. TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. The thyroid gland tends to underperform with age, particularly in women, and the symptoms are easy to miss or misattribute. And after 50, if you've never had one, a colonoscopy. Yes, that procedure. I understand it's not anyone's favorite, but it saves lives directly. Colorectal cancer is one of the most common cancers in both men and women. Caught at an early stage, it's treated with close to 100% success rates. Caught late, that changes completely. One colonoscopy every 5 to 10 years is your policy against one of the most preventable cancer deaths there is. For women, mammography every 2 years and a gynecological exam including a cervical cancer screening. For men, a PSA, prostate-specific antigen test after 50, discussed with your doctor based on your individual risk profile. This is not an overwhelming list. Most of it is available without significant out-of-pocket cost, and collectively it can catch a problem while it's still easy to solve. Now, how to actually use a doctor. This topic carries real frustration for a lot of people, and I understand why. Overbooked schedules, 3 minutes per appointment, prescriptions written before you finish your sentence, the feeling of not being heard. But your doctor is a tool, and the result depends significantly on how you use that tool. Come prepared. Write your concerns down before you go. It sounds old-fashioned. It works. In the room, you'll be nervous and you'll forget half of what you meant to say. You'll walk out thinking, I was going to ask about my legs, my sleep, and that spot on my skin. Write 3 to 5 specific questions in advance. Do I need to check my blood sugar? Could this medication be causing that side effect? Is there an alternative? Bring the list and don't hesitate to ask why. If your doctor orders a test, why this test specifically? If they prescribe a medication, why this one and what are the side effects? You have the right to understand what is being done to your body and why and with what potential consequences. If a physician takes offense at those questions, find a different physician. A good doctor is grateful when a patient asks questions because it means the person is engaged in their own care. Practical step, start a medical notebook. An ordinary one, school-sized. First page, your chronic conditions, if any. Second page, medications and doses. Third page, test results. Date, what was tested, what the number was. Update it after every visit. In a year, you have a complete picture with trend lines. Any physician you show it to will be better equipped to help you. And now, the story I want to leave you with. About 1.5 years ago, a man came to see me. 58 years old, a factory engineer his entire career. His wife had dragged him in. He wouldn't have come on his own. Blood pressure, 178/105. Fasting blood sugar, 7.4. Total cholesterol, 7.2. Weight, 240 pounds at 5 feet 9. He was short of breath climbing to the 3rd floor. His snoring was bad enough that his wife had been sleeping in another room for 2 years. His knees hurt. He had reflux every evening. He sat down in the chair and said, "Doctor, how much time do I have left?" Not sarcastic, genuinely. I said, "You have as much time as you decide to give yourself. Because everything you have right now is not disease. It's the accumulated result of how you've been living for the past 20 years, and most of it can be reversed." He didn't believe me, but his wife was persistent. We started slowly, without revolution. Month 1, out went the processed sausage and hot dogs, replaced by chicken and fish twice a week. Tea went from 2 spoons of sugar to 1. The evening buttered bread and cheese was replaced by cottage cheese with fresh herbs. Month 2, 15 minutes of walking every morning around the building. The first week he was winded. The second week he wasn't. By the end of the month, 25 minutes. Month 3, packaged juices were eliminated. He started drinking water. He told me he was surprised to find that water was actually drinkable on its own. Month 4, we added exercises. Chair squats, calf raises, 5 minutes each morning. Month 5, his wife started cooking vegetables differently. Roasted, braised, with garlic and herbs. A man who had been an avowed carnivore his entire life looked up from the plate one evening and said, "You know, I actually like this. Month 6. Follow-up labs. Weight, 216 pounds, down 24 pounds. Blood pressure, 132/84. Fasting blood sugar, 5.1. Cholesterol, 5.8. The reflux was gone. His knees hurt, but less. The snoring was reduced. His wife came back to the bedroom. He sat in my office reading the results, and he said, "I didn't think this was possible. I thought it was over, but it turns out it was just starting." That moment is why I do this work. When a person realizes they are not a victim, not a prisoner of their genetics, not doomed by their age. They are the person in charge, and they have more power than they've been told. If you take only one thing from everything I said today, let it be this. Long life isn't one heroic act. It's thousands of small decisions made consistently. A plate with vegetables instead of another slice of processed meat, that's a decision. 20 minutes of walking instead of another hour in front of the television, that's a decision. A glass of water instead of a carton of juice, a decision. Calling a friend instead of spending the evening alone, a decision. A slow breath instead of escalating an argument, a decision. Each one is invisible. Each one is small. Together they are years of life. Not just years, good years. Years where you can walk with your grandchildren, travel somewhere new, remember what you went into that room to get, and wake up looking forward to the day. That is not a fantasy. I've watched people build it. You can too. Here are your practical takeaways. Genetics is not your sentence. It accounts for 20 to 30% of your outcome, and the remaining 70 to 80% is in your hands. Write down your family health history and bring it to your doctor. Food is a pattern, not a diet. More protein, more vegetables, less sugar, less salt, fewer processed products. One change per week, not everything overnight. Movement is not optional. Walking plus simple body weight exercise, 15 to 20 minutes daily to start. Your body will ask for more. Sleep and stress are clinical variables. A consistent schedule, slow breathing, no screens before bed, and real human connection. Loneliness damages your health as surely as smoking. Annual lab work. A basic panel catches problems when they're still fixable. Don't wait to feel symptoms. And in every appointment, come prepared, ask why, keep your own records. Write in the comments what your first step will be. Adding protein to breakfast, starting morning walks, calling someone you've been meaning to reach. Whatever it is, write it down. When you commit to something in writing, your brain treats it as real. That's psychology, not magic. And your answer may be exactly what another person watching needs to see. Your doctor at a routine appointment is not going to tell you any of this. There's simply no time, and the medical system does not get paid when you stay well. It gets paid when you come back sick. I'm telling you because that's what this channel is for. Help Dr. Waterling reach 1,000 subscribers. Subscribe and leave a like. We're building something real here, and it only works if you're part of it.